You've ever had the feeling that something profound is changing inside you, but you can't explain exactly what. During my more than 40 years working with energetic anatomy and sacred contracts, I've witnessed thousands of people going through spiritual awakenings without even realizing they were experiencing one of the most significant transformations of human existence. Today, I want to share with you the 5 most profound signs that indicate you are going through an authentic spiritual awakening. Signs that I learned to recognize through decades of intimate work with the human soul, and that may reveal truths about your journey that perhaps you haven't yet fully understood. The first sign I always observe in spiritually awakened people is a radical change in the perception of time and priorities. When I began my work as an intuitive medical in the 80s, one of the first things I noticed was how people in the process of spiritual awakening began to deeply question their old life structures. It's not just a passing dissatisfaction with work or relationships. It's something much deeper that emerges from the heart's energy center, specifically from the 4th chakra, where our capacity to discern between what feeds our soul and what drains it resides. You may be experiencing this if you've noticed that activities you once considered important now seem empty or meaningless, while simple moments like contemplating nature, having deep conversations, or practicing silence began to nourish your soul in ways you never imagined possible. This is not a sign of depression or common discontent. It's your soul communicating through your energetic system that you are evolving to a higher frequency of consciousness. When I work with clients who are going through this transition, I always explain that they are renegotiating their sacred contracts, those energetic agreements they made before incarnating that define their life lessons, relationships, and purpose. Time for them stops being linear and mechanical to become sacred and meaningful, where each moment begins to have transformative potential. The second profound sign I've identified throughout my career is the development of an intensified energetic sensitivity that can initially confuse or even frighten. I remember a client who came to me completely disturbed because she began to feel other people's emotions as if they were her own emotions, and frequently knew things about strangers that she had no logical way of knowing. When your intuitive capacity awakens, you may notice that you can perceive when someone is lying, feel physical discomfort in environments with heavy energy, or simply know things without understanding how you know. This happens because your higher chakras, particularly the 6th chakra located in the center of the forehead, are opening and expanding your capacity to perceive information beyond the 5 physical senses. During my years studying energetic anatomy, I discovered that when a person is spiritually awakened, their auric field expands significantly, functioning like an antenna that picks up subtle information from the environment and people. You may notice that you can no longer tolerate superficial conversations, gossip, or environments where there's a lot of emotional drama, not because you've become arrogant, but because your energetic sensitivity is operating at a more refined frequency that naturally repels dense vibrations. This sensitivity can also manifest through more vivid and symbolic dreams, frequent synchronicities that seem like messages from the universe, and a growing ability to perceive the energy of places and objects. It's important to understand that this is not a curse or a burden. It's a gift that accompanies your spiritual evolution, although it requires that you learn to establish healthy, energetic boundaries and to discern between your own energy and others' energy. The third sign I consistently observe is a fundamental change in the relationship with suffering and life's challenges. Spiritually awakened people begin to perceive their problems not as unfair punishments from the universe, but as opportunities for growth and healing that are part of a larger plan. During my personal journey, I went through periods of intense suffering that initially revolted me against life, but which I later understood as being sacred contracts that I myself had chosen to accelerate my spiritual evolution and develop the compassion necessary for the work I came to do. When you are spiritually awakened, you develop what I call symbolic sight, the ability to see beyond the surface of events and understand the energetic patterns and spiritual lessons being offered. You may notice that when facing a crisis, instead of just reacting emotionally, a part of you can step back and ask, what is the message? What is the growth being offered? What aspect of your personality needs to be transformed or healed? This doesn't mean you become insensitive to pain or that you romanticize suffering. It means you develop a broader perspective that can find meaning and purpose even in the most difficult experiences. Frequently, people in this stage begin to perceive repetitive patterns in their lives and relationships, understanding that these patterns are opportunities to heal old wounds and transcend limitations they've carried for a long time. Suffering stops being something you avoid at all costs to become a teacher you consult when necessary, always extracting wisdom and compassion from each challenging experience. Now I want to pause for a moment to connect with you in a more intimate way. If while I was speaking about these signs, you felt a deep recognition, if something inside your chest expanded with the sensation of finally having words to describe what you have been experiencing, I would like you to know that you are not alone in this journey. Throughout decades of work, I've seen so many people feel isolated during their spiritual awakening, as if they were the only ones going through these profound transformations. Therefore, I want to ask a question directly to your heart. Have you ever felt as if you were living between two worlds, the material world that everyone around you seems to navigate with ease, and an internal world of deeper meanings and connections that sometimes seems more real than physical reality itself? If this question touched something inside you, I would very much like to hear about your experience. Write in the comments the phrase, Caroline, I feel between two worlds, and tell briefly how this has manifested in your life. Your sharing not only validates your own journey, but also offers comfort and recognition for other awakened souls who are watching and perhaps feeling equally isolated in their experiences. Remember that when you share your truth, you create bridges of connection that allow others to feel less alone in their own awakening processes. This is the magic of an authentic spiritual community, where each soul that has the courage to show itself vulnerable offers a gift of healing to the collective. The fourth profound sign I've identified is a transformation in the nature of your relationships, where you naturally move away from superficial connections and feel magnetically attracted to people who can meet you at deeper levels of authenticity. During my studies on sacred contracts, I discovered that when a person is spiritually awakened, their relational contracts also begin to evolve, meaning they can no longer maintain relationships based on empty social roles, emotional codependency, or purely material exchanges. You may have noticed that you lost interest in friendships where conversation revolves only around gossip, constant complaints, or superficial discussions about consumption and social status. This doesn't happen because you became judgmental or elitist, but because your soul is operating at a frequency that seeks real connection mutual vulnerability, and joint growth. Frequently, people in this stage go through what I call relational cleansing, where relationships that are not aligned with their new vibration naturally dissolve, while new connections that nourish their soul begin to appear in often synchronistic ways. It can be challenging initially, especially if you value harmony and fear conflicts, but it's essential to understand that this is not a loss. It's a refinement that allows more authentic and nourishing relationships to enter your life. You may also notice changes in family relationships, where old dynamics that you once accepted without questioning now become unbearable. This happens because when you awaken spiritually, your third chakra, located in the solar plexus and responsible for your sense of personal identity and healthy boundaries, strengthens significantly. You develop the capacity to say no without guilt, to establish clear limits, and to be true to yourself even when this bothers others. In romantic relationships, this awakening can create both greater intimacy with partners who are willing to grow together and incompatibility with those who resist evolution or prefer to maintain relationships at superficial levels. The fifth and perhaps most transformative sign I observe is the development of a direct and personal connection with the divine that transcends organized religions and becomes an intimate and constant experience. Spiritually awakened people frequently discover they no longer need intermediaries or institutions to access universal wisdom, as they've developed a direct line of communication with their own souls and with the superior intelligence that permeates all existence. During my own spiritual journey, I went through a period where I deeply questioned traditional religious structures, not out of rebellion, but because my soul was calling me to a more direct and personal experience of the sacred. When you are awakened, you may notice that prayer becomes more an intimate conversation and less a recitation of requests, that meditation flows naturally, like a homecoming, and that you can feel divine guidance through your intuition, through signs in nature, through meaningful dreams, and through an inner sense of knowing that you cannot explain logically. Your seventh chakra, located at the top of the head and responsible for spiritual connection, opens like a flower that finally receives adequate sunlight. This can manifest as spontaneous mystical experiences, moments of spiritual ecstasy during simple activities, sensations of unity with all life, or simply a deep peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances. You may discover that you have your own unique ways of honoring the sacred, which may include personal rituals, gratitude practices, moments of contemplative silence, or simply living each day with greater consciousness and presence. This direct connection with the divine frequently comes accompanied by a growing understanding that you are not a victim of circumstances, but a conscious co-creator of your reality. Someone who has active participation in how your life unfolds through your choices, thoughts, and energetic alignment. I would now like to address something I consider fundamental and that perhaps no one has explained to you with clarity. Spiritual awakening is not a unique experience that happens and then ends. It's a continuous process of consciousness expansion that unfolds in layers throughout your entire life. During my years of practice, I've observed that many people become confused because they expect awakening to be like turning on a switch, where suddenly everything becomes clear and easy. The reality is much more subtle and organic. Each level of awakening brings new gifts, but also new challenges and responsibilities. When you recognize your energetic sensitivity, you need to learn to manage it. When you develop symbolic sight, You need to learn to apply it with wisdom. When you connect directly with the divine, you need to learn to trust this connection even when others question or don't understand your experiences. What I want you to understand is that each phase of your awakening is perfect and has its own divine timing. There's no rush, no specific goal to achieve, no comparison to make with other people's spiritual journeys. Your soul chose this awakening path because it has specific work to do in this incarnation, unique sacred contracts to fulfill, and particular gifts to develop and share with the world. Trust the process, even when it seems slow or when you go through periods of apparent stagnation. Sometimes the greatest spiritual growth happens during the quietest periods, when it seems nothing is happening on the surface, but internally you are integrating and maturing everything you've learned. It's also important to recognize that spiritual awakening can bring unique challenges that our materialistic society doesn't teach how to navigate. You may feel like a foreigner in your own world, especially if you grew up in environments where spirituality was discouraged or considered irrelevant. You may face resistance from family members and friends who don't understand your changes and may try to pull you back to old patterns that no longer serve your evolution. You may go through periods I call dark night of the soul, where old identities die to give place to more authentic versions of yourself, and this process can be temporarily disorienting or lonely. During my own journey, I went through moments of profound confusion where I questioned my mental sanity, especially when my intuitive capacities began to manifest more intensely. What saved me was finding spiritual mentors who had gone through similar experiences and could guide me with wisdom and compassion. That's why I emphasize so much the importance of finding your spiritual tribe, people who not only tolerate your journey, but who celebrate and support it. These connections can come through spiritual study groups, workshops, retreats, or simply through friendships that form naturally with other awakened people. Remember that your spiritual sensitivity is a gift, not a problem to be solved. Your capacity to perceive subtle energies, to feel deep compassion for others' suffering, to question inadequate social structures, and to seek meaning beyond the material are precious qualities that the world desperately needs at this moment of our collective evolution. I want to share with you something I learned after decades of work with energetic anatomy, and that can completely transform how you see your spiritual journey. Each of the signs I described are not just awakening indicators, they are also active tools of transformation that you can use consciously to accelerate and deepen your spiritual growth. Your increased energetic sensitivity can become an internal compass that guides you to more aligned choices. Your shift in priorities can become a value system that orients important decisions. Your new relationship with suffering can transform into wisdom that you offer to help others who are still struggling. Your transformed relationships can become laboratories of mutual growth where you practice vulnerability, compassion, and authenticity. Your direct connection with the divine can become a constant source of guidance and inner strength that sustains you through any challenge. The secret is in recognizing that you are not just someone who is going through a spiritual awakening. You are someone who is actively participating in your own consciousness evolution. This means you have choices in each moment about how to respond to the energies around you, how to interpret your life's events, how to invest your emotional energy, and how to use your emerging spiritual gifts to create more love, wisdom, and healing, both in your own life and in the world around you. There's something more I need to share, something that may be the most important aspect of this entire awakening process. Throughout my career, I've observed that spiritually awakened people frequently carry what I call service contracts, energetic agreements they made before incarnating to use their experiences of personal growth and healing as a foundation to help others in their journeys. This means your spiritual awakening is not just about your own growth, it's also about becoming an agent of positive transformation in the world. You may notice that you naturally become someone others seek when they need advice, that you have ease in perceiving people's unique gifts, or that you feel called to work involving healing, teaching, guidance, or creating greater consciousness in the world. This doesn't mean you need to become a guru or public spiritual leader. It means your own awakening journey creates waves of positive influence that touch all the people you interact with. When you live with greater authenticity, you give permission for others to do the same. When you choose love instead of fear, you inspire courage in others. When you question limiting structures and seek deeper truth, you open pathways for others to do the same. Your spiritual awakening is simultaneously the most personal and intimate gift you can give yourself and the most generous gift you can offer to the world. This understanding can transform moments of doubt into moments of purpose, periods of loneliness into periods of preparation, and personal challenges into opportunities to develop the wisdom and compassion necessary for the work your soul came to do in this incarnation. Before we conclude this intimate conversation, I want to offer some practical guidance to nurture and deepen your spiritual awakening in ways that honor both your unique nature and your ongoing growth needs. First, develop a daily practice of silence, whether through meditation, contemplation in nature, intuitive journaling, or simply moments of quietude where you can hear your soul's voice without the distractions of the external world. This practice doesn't need to be long or complicated, but it needs to be consistent, as it's through regular silence that you strengthen your connection to your inner wisdom and your capacity to discern authentic spiritual guidance. Second, consciously cultivate relationships that nourish your soul and have courage to gradually move away from dynamics that drain your energy or require you to deny authentic aspects of who you are. This may require uncomfortable conversations, establishment of firm boundaries, or even temporary periods of solitude while your vibration stabilizes at higher levels. Third, develop your capacity to see your life through symbolic lenses, regularly asking what lessons or growth are being offered through your experiences, especially the challenging ones. This transforms you from a victim of circumstances into an active student of life, someone who extracts wisdom from every situation. Fourth, find creative and personal ways to honor the sacred in your daily life, creating simple rituals that connect you with gratitude, reverence, and recognition of the magic that permeates all existence. Finally, trust deeply in the unique timing of your spiritual journey, resisting the temptation to compare yourself with others or to force experiences that are not flowing naturally. Your soul knows exactly what it needs and when it needs it for your highest evolution. If you recognized aspects of your own journey in the signs I shared today, I want you to know that I am deeply honored to have been able to be part of your self-discovery process through this conversation. Spiritual awakening is a journey of courage that requires you to leave behind old versions of yourself, to embrace who you truly are at your deepest levels. It's a path that sometimes may seem lonely, but that actually connects you to an invisible network of awakened souls who are all contributing to the elevation of human consciousness during this transformative period of our collective history. Each step you take toward greater authenticity, each moment you choose love over fear, Each time you honor your spiritual sensitivity instead of trying to suppress it, you are actively participating in the healing and evolution of all humanity. This is both a privilege and a sacred responsibility that your soul chose to assume in this incarnation. Please consider supporting this work by leaving your like on this video if it brought clarity or comfort to your journey. Each like helps me reach other souls who may be feeling lost or confused during their own awakening processes, and who need to hear that they are not alone and that their experiences are valid and sacred. If you feel called to join our community of awakened souls, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to receive regular content that supports authentic spiritual growth and deep healing. We will meet again soon to continue exploring the mysteries and wonders of the human spiritual journey. Until then, remember that you are exactly where you need to be in your evolution, that your sensitivity is a gift, that your awakening serves not just you, but the entire world, and that each day offers new opportunities to live from your most authentic spiritual center. May your journey be blessed with clarity, courage, and deep connection to the wisdom of your own soul. Until our next meeting,